All right, welcome to Church in the Wild. Thank you for choosing to join us today as we worship together. I'm super excited to continue in our Monster series. Today we're going to be talking about The Invisible Man. I will tell you up front, this movie was made in the 1930s that I'm going to talk to you about today. So if I spoil it for you, that's your fault, all right? It's 100 years old. If you haven't watched it by now, I'm not going to ruin anything for you. You can look at Proverbs 25, but right before I begin the sermon, we're actually going to watch a quick recap of what's going on in India right now. We were able to get some video pictures of things that they've been doing. So watch this video. It's about a minute long. All right, so that is so exciting. I love that. Let's give it up for the mission team. I know we're not supposed to covet, but I'm definitely coveting them and their ability to go and do that. That is life-changing for them. You saw some of the food. We were able to feed an entire village for 3 months with food that we were able to bring in. And so just amazing, incredible stuff that we get to be a part of and you get to be a part of. Every dollar that you give has helped us do more over there. And man, I could talk about this forever, but they're going to come back and want to talk about it. And so I'm not going to try to steal their thunder. I'm going to talk about The Invisible Man today. The Invisible Man movie is about a man who shows up in a small town in England covered in bandages and wearing dark glasses. Very mysterious. He demands to be left alone and does research, and every time, conveniently, that his rent bill is due, he disappears, and they can never find him, which some of you know exactly what that is like. He is eventually making bigger and bigger messes, and they can hear him laughing, and they think he's talking to somebody else, and so they go to evict him, and when they go to evict him, he throws a man down the stairs, rips his bandages off in front of the police, and disappears entirely while laughing hysterically. And turns out this is not the first time that this has happened. So he has also disappeared earlier in London from his fiance and from his boss, and he's just gone and disappeared, and they can't find him. So they're doing all these things to try to find him. They have the police looking for him, all these other people, and he eventually makes what he calls visible partners. So it's people who he kind of coerces and manipulates into doing things that are crimes. And he's very casual about these crimes. He's like, well, we may commit a few crimes like derailing a train, but that's nothing when we get to rule the world. And every time his visible partners get caught and get in trouble, he's nowhere to be seen. He disappears again and again and again through the entire movie until it starts to snow. And they can see an outline of him in the snow. So he tries to run away, but the detective who is chasing him sees footprints in the snow. And like I said, it's 100 years old, so I'm not spoiling this for you. The detective actually shoots him, and he's lying in the snow, and he becomes visible again, and that is the Invisible Man. And you are right now like, what does that have to do with Proverbs 25:19 at all? Proverbs 25:19 says, trusting And a treacherous man in times of trouble is like a bad tooth or a foot that slips. See, what that movie reminded me of when I was watching this as a kid is just that person who always disappears in times of adversity. That person who, when you need them, they are nowhere to be found. They are the invisible man. And 2 weeks ago, we talked about Casper the Friendly Ghost. And we talked about how there's people who will ghost you sometimes, like you think you had the best date ever, and then they just never answer you ever again. We're not talking about that. We're talking about someone who is still there, but they're just not helpful. This is the person who you go to in times of need, and they disappear. They will come to you in times of need over and over and over again, but when you need something from them, there is always something that can't go right. The invisible man can never be serious. They're always switching jobs. They're always switching churches. They're always switching friend groups. They're always looking for the next thing. You never really know your relationship status because, in the words of George Strait, they are here for a good time, but not for a long time. They are not comfortable in the mundane, everyday life. And sometimes you get a little glimpse of this because in the everyday life, you say or do something and they just blow up and you're like, why are you so upset right now? But it's because they are going to become invisible. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 6 says, many a man. If you're a single girl, this is your life verse. Many a man proclaims his own steadfast love, but a faithful man who can find. Right? We can all agree on that. That is the truth. There's a lot of dudes who are like, I love you. Are they a faithful, good man? So let's talk about why they are the invisible man. What makes an invisible man the invisible man? Well, it could be one of two very different reasons. One, they do not think they can win, so they just quit and disappear. They could be becoming invisible during conversations because you have trained them to believe that no matter what it is, they can't find a win in it, so they just disappear. Okay? So they could be turning to Xbox or turning to television or turning to social media or turning to TikTok because they feel like they can win on there. And in the everyday relational parts of life, they feel like there's no way they can win with you. So it's easier for them to just kind of disappear. This is why it's so important. We'll talk about this in a minute. I don't want to ruin my own sermon, but this is why it's so important to point out the good you see as often as you point out the bad that you see. Because we've got to provide ways for them to find wins. They may not have a way that they can win, or far more often, they just do not want to or do not know how to face adversity. And this is why I think it's so important that we do not come rushing to the rescue of our children every time they face adversity. Because we have to help our kids handle adversity on their own. Now, certainly, we're not talking about the very, very obvious times of need, but one of the worst things we can do is pull our kid out of 6 different sports teams because the coach didn't like them. We are literally teaching them to become the invisible man when they're adults. They need to learn how to succeed even with a coach who's not fair. One of the best things in life that can happen to you is if you're playing sports and the ref is unfair and you just figure out how to win anyways. So often what we do as adults is we love our kids, and I say we because I do this. I love my daughter. We love our kids, and so anytime adversity comes, we're like, oh, I'll just pull you out of there and I'll rescue you. So that when they are adults and they have to face adversity, all of a sudden they don't know how because they've never done it. This is why they disappear. And it is why people in our life disappear, because so often they've not faced adversity. And so when adversity comes, and adversity will come, I'm doing the FCA for Westerville Central right now. They lost Friday night. It was 42-7 with 7 minutes left, and they're 0-6. And I told them, you have this thing in life called the opportunity to learn how to handle adversity that you will never get anywhere else but in this season. Because adversity can be helpful. So, we know why they're invisible, because they either feel like they can't win or they just don't know how to handle adversity. So how do we deal with the invisible man? Well, the movie teaches us that we need to see the footprints. We need to look for footprints in the snow. See the footprints. Some of the footprints of somebody who's an invisible man is they love to play the blame game. They will blame anyone and anything else besides what really is causing them pain. So often you will get blamed for all sorts of things by them, but in reality, it's not you. It's just easier to blame the spouse than it is to look at the thing from their childhood or from their middle school years. And so it's easier to say, you are causing me pain, you are the reason I'm not happy, when in reality, it's something from middle school back. But because we don't want to handle this adversity, we play the blame game. We consistently blame outside of the reality of what really is causing the problem. They will blame people within their career or with friends because they do not think they can ever win with you. So they're looking for a new reason to pass the buck. This is why you'll come to them and say, what is wrong with you? And they're like, well, I'm unhappy with this or this or this. And it's always something besides what really is going on. So they will play the blame game, or they will play, look at that over there. Look at that over there. They will look at anything else besides the adversity they're in. Look at how busy I am. Look at how successful I am. Look at how funny I am. Look at how much fun I'm having. Anything to not see reality. So we don't want to see the bills, but we go on another trip with a new credit card and add new bills to the bills that we didn't want to see in the first place. And this is what it looks like to say, look at that over there. Number 3, let's have fun. We're going to have as much fun as possible rather than deal with the pain. So somebody who is an invisible man will just pile fun on top of adversity and pain over and over and over and over again, and wonder why at the end of the fun, there's still pain and adversity. But they've not dealt with the adversity. They've not dealt with the thing making it the relationship hard or making the career hard or making life hard. They've not dealt with the bills. So again, they just continue to try to pile more fun on top of it. This is why I put let's have fun in all caps with 3 exclamation points, because I can see in my mind like, let's have fun. I just want to have fun. Reality is that life is not always fun. It cannot be. Nor was it intended to be. God did not say to Adam and Eve, the garden is perfect, have fun. He said to Adam and Eve, the garden is perfect, let's work in it. Fun is a part of life, but fun is not life. And there's one thing that I see in my generation. I think of my grandfather who stormed into Leyte Gulf in the Philippines in the middle of a war with nothing but a medic kit, and had people shooting at him more than they were shooting at soldiers, because they were like, well, if we shoot the medics, then we can kill 10 people for every medic that we kill. And I don't think in the middle of any part in that did he stop and say, now let's play a game so we have fun. He just dealt with it, right? But what I see in our generation is we're so determined to have fun because we have been taught since kindergarten that everything should be fun all the time. And so all that we can think of during times of adversity is I'll just escape the adversity and I'll go have fun over here. But you can't outrun a monster and you can't hide from a monster. And so adversity is going to be there when you get back from the fun. We used to go to a cabin in the woods every Christmas or every New Year. And we would drive in a big old 18-passenger van. And when we would get to this one part where the van could not go any further because it was like 4 feet of snow where we were going, we would then snowmobile for like another mile in. And then from there, we would carry like all of this stuff into this cabin. My dad would start a fire. We would have chili. And as kids, it was a blast. It was so fun. So I remember that all three of my siblings got married within 1 year, and so did my cousin, who was kind of like a sibling. And my mom thought, you know what we'll do? We'll bring all these grown people into this same situation, and we're just going to have the time of our life, because that's how they had fun when they were kids. But we're all grown now, and we're all grumpy now, and we all think we know how to play the game the right way, and we all call people out when they cheat now. And I can remember we're sitting around this card table playing Uno, I think, and my sister's arguing with my brother, and my brother's like, don't you talk to me like that, woman. And she's like, you don't call me a woman. And they're just going back and forth, and I hear my mom from the other room, doesn't sound like you're having fun. And my brother goes, of course we're not having fun. You brought Angie. And so this cabin that was so peaceful and so beautiful all of a sudden was not peaceful and beautiful. The reality is a game of Uno is not going to remove adversity. It's just piling fun on top of the adversity. Next, now you see me, now you don't. I'll just disappear to where I know I can find success, because no one really hears me or sees me anyways. So I'll just stay home or quit to show them that they should have listened to me. I'll just not go, or if I do go, instead of learning how to win or help others win, I'll just be present, but I'll be invisible. If I do show up, and this is such a thing right now, if I do show up, I will show up looking for reasons to validate what I already want to be true. And so I'll just spend time trying to find the one person in the room who validates what I already think, so that I have a reason to then leave and be gone and disappear. And this happens all the time. I know that this is going to be controversial, but really there's no such thing as church hurt. There is just people hurt, because people hurt people. And you just happen to get hurt in a church. But if you didn't get hurt in the church, you'd get hurt in the gym, because somebody would film you and start making fun of you while you were trying to squat. And if you didn't get hurt in the gym, you'd get hurt in the bar. And if you didn't get hurt in the bar, you'd get hurt in your car. If you didn't get hurt in the car, you'd get hurt at school. Because adversity happens because people hurt people. And in reality, we have people hurt. People hurt people. But what happens so often in life is we've been hurt, or we know somebody else who's been hurt, so we walk in looking for the reason to validate what we already believe. And as soon as it happens, we're like, perfect, got him, got my chance to disappear. And this is why I've had people disappear from church and ghost me, and then I find out later on, like, well, you were the only one who was my friend. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, I thought I was your friend. I don't know how that's bad. Well, it was just you. Or you know what, everyone but you. Or there's all these reasons for people who disappear, because we're looking to validate what we already want to be true. So when you're in that relationship and you go to them and you need help, and they're like, she's so clingy, I knew it, and they disappear. Oh, he's so domineering, I knew it, and they disappear. They're looking for something to validate what they already believe, so they have a reason to disappear. And I am such a hypocrite about this, because I do this too. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. Many of you know I'm not from this state. Therefore, you know I don't cheer for the team from this state. So what I find myself doing when I go to team games from the team from this state that I refuse to name is I find myself judging the fans so much at the game that I went to. Why? Because I want to be right about the team I chose to cheer for. So I'll come in because I happen to be friends with a couple of their former players, and I'll be like, oh man, those guys are great, but you know why I don't like them? Because they're fans. And so I'll find myself walking in a sea of 100,000 people looking for the one guy who's just a colossal jerk, so that I can be like, ha, got him. Ohio State fans are the worst ever. Said the name. Said the name. We're not doing OHIO up here. You know why? You know why Ohio State fans do OHIO? Because they can't spell Michigan. All right. Everyone's gone. You're like, church hurt. He's a jerk. I knew it. Look, you guys are going to beat us by 50 this year. I resign myself to it. I will do this. I will look for reasons to why I think something I already believe is true, so I can validate my reason to continue to think what I already think, so I can be invisible and disappear and have a reason to do it. And this happens so often in life. And so if you have a person in your life who every time you go to them in time of need, they're like, I would help you, but 16 years ago, you did this, and so now I'm not going to help you. They're just looking for a reason to validate what they already believe is true. So they have a reason to disappear. So then, how do we deal with this person? Because odds are really high, we either really love this person or we are this person. Odds are really high that all of us in this room are one of two people. We either are best friends with that person, but we just know they're going to let us down. Or we're like right now, like, oh, I don't know anyone like that. And everyone else in the room is like, oh, I know one person like that. So how do we deal with them? Because you can't outrun them. You can't just keep switching churches, jobs, friends, relationships, people over and over and over and over again, hoping to never find somebody who disappears when you need them. Because horror movies, monster movies teach us this. They teach us that no matter how far and how fast and how athletic you are, the bad guy will catch you at the very end of the movie. And you can't hide from him. Because no matter how good you are at hiding, the bad guy knows which table out of 57 tables in the cafeteria you hid under. He knows right to stop right there. And he's like dragging some piece of metal, and he knows to stop right at the one you're at. This is true about life. You cannot outrun adversity. Adversity is a part and a piece of life. So we can't outrun it, and we can't hide from it. And we can't just keep piling fun on top of it. So how do we deal with someone? Well, we need to point out the wins or the good things that we see in them. If they keep disappearing every time there's a serious relationship conversation and we just watch them, and their eyes glaze over, and all of a sudden they start shifting over to watch the TV, if that happens, odds are really high they think they cannot win with you, and so they've given up. Because all of humanity was created for a purpose, and all of humanity was also created with a need to find a way to win, because we have to be able to survive. So for centuries, we were finding ways to win until all of a sudden now, we don't have those opportunities. So what do? We disappear to go find them. This is why we will spend countless dollars gambling on sports, but not talk to our wife about the problems that we really have. This is why we will spend countless hours on football, but not talk to the person in the room who's trying to talk to us about the serious things. This is why we will spend countless hours on TikTok, because you know what TikTok does? It gives us a quick win. We've got to win. We've got to win. I'm better than that person. They're doing that, and I'm not. I won today. Because we need to find ways to win in life to be a complete human. It's a part of our DNA is to win. So if you have an invisible man or woman or child in your life, point out when they win. As often as you point out when they lose, point out when they win. In fact, build ways into the relationship for them to win. And then point it out when they do. So if you're only going to point out every time they don't get the clothes in the one place that you want them to get, point out also that they come home from work having done a really good job at work. Build ways into your relationship for the people around you to win, and then celebrate when they do. Celebrate when they do. I really believe that the reason video games are a thing is because we had generations where we were like, we need to have adversity and we need to find ways to win and overcome these things. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the 80s and 90s, that was taken away from a lot of boys if they didn't play football. And so they didn't know how to find any other way to win besides online. So we, for decades now, have not been able to handle adversity other than disappearing to find a way to do it. So if you have people in your life and you're going to point out the negative, build in ways to the relationship for them to win, and then point it out and celebrate it when they do. So if your kid paints on the thing that they're not supposed to paint on, you can point out that they're not supposed to paint on it, but also make sure that when they color on the page they're supposed to color on and it looks ridiculous, make sure you point out, boy, that's a great snowman. Because that's pointing out and figuring out ways for them to win. And all of a sudden, someone who has gone invisible will come roaring back into sight when they've had a little bit of success. So often, our spouses and our children and our coworkers and our employees just think that they can't win with us, so they're just going to find a place that they can. And that doesn't mean they're going to do just horrible bad things. It just means they're going to spend time watching something that makes them feel like they can win, or spend time talking to the one friend who helps make them feel like they can win. So be that friend. If you're going to point out every time your spouse spends money she shouldn't, point out the times that she doesn't and celebrate it. Figure out ways to point out the good you see. Number 2, keep being visible. Stay consistent. Don't get inconsistent with an inconsistent person. Stay visible. Stay present. Stay visible. Number 3, bring on the serum. In this movie, everyone is trying to find this one serum to help the guy become visible again. Our serum in life is perspective. Bring on perspective. We may not be able to fix every problem, but we can always fix our perspective. We need to provide perspective to those we love and to ourselves. Well, we need to have a proper perspective on adversity. Look at Isaiah chapter 30. This is like this is a beautiful, like poetic couple of verses, and also it is a verse that I think just 90% of Christianity is like, we don't want to talk about this. Though the Lord give you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet your teacher will not hide himself anymore, but your eyes shall see your teacher. Your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. When you turn to the right or when you turn to the left. You know what the scriptures is saying here? This is in Isaiah, and Isaiah was an old school prophet, and the children of Israel, they had refused to let their land rest. They were supposed to every 7 years let their land rest for a year, but because they got greedy, they just wanted to achieve more and more and more and more, so they wouldn't let the land rest, and so God allowed them to go into captivity for a set amount of time to let the land rest, because they needed to be in the land and sustained in the land when Jesus would arrive. And so there's this book called Isaiah, and Isaiah is this prophet, and he just keeps talking about, man, like these people they're gonna be doing this, and this hard time's coming in your life, and this hard time's coming in your life. And he calls it the bread of adversity. The bread of adversity and the water of affliction. In other words, the everyday essential need of having adversity in our life. Because adversity is not something to run away from. Adversity can help us to see ourselves, others, and God more clearly, but only if we do not blame others and disappear. It can help us to see ourselves, others, and God more clearly, but only if we do not blame others and disappear. Often in times of adversity, the temptation is to figure out who to blame so that we can head out. But in reality, adversity is something that helps us begin to understand ourselves, see those around us, and the Bible says to see our teacher. So often in our life, we try to make adversity invisible, but instead make ourselves invisible because we don't want to deal with adversity. You cannot fix problems that you refuse to see. If there's a problem and you just refuse to acknowledge it, you will never fix it. So adversity is required because it forces us to see problems, often problems in ourselves, often problems in life. But the Bible says that adversity can also lead to competence and joy. James chapter 1, verse 2, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. I do have to point out right here that James is talking to people who right around this time were being used as human torches by the Roman Empire. They were being sawn in half. Some of them were being soaked in sheepskin and then released into a desert to slowly suffocate. Some of them were being put into logs and the logs sawn in half. Some of them were being fed to animals. And yet James says, count it all joy, brothers and sisters, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And when steadfastness has its full effect, you are perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Now, if James is going to say this to people who are being used as human torches, surely we can survive the person who doesn't like us because we didn't put the same political yard sign up as them. Surely we can survive the rude comment on social media. Adversity is good for us if we stick in the adversity and learn competence. Competence is different than confidence. And I think what we've tried to do so often is to teach confidence, and really what we need to learn is competence. Because competence says, I know that I have what I need to get through this. So I'm confident in adversity, and I'm confident out of adversity. Because I know that my parents or my school or my church or my friend circle has prepared me to be able to handle and take care of myself even in difficult times of adversity. And that's competence. Competence says, I'm sure that with the help of God and with my community, I can figure out a way to get through the adversity that I'm in. And when we talk about this, he says, you are perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Competence leads to confidence. This is why it's so important that we teach our children how to solve the problem rather than running out to solve the problem for them every time that there is a problem. Because if we teach them how to solve the problem, they will begin to be competent rather than just confident. You can be confident without being competent, but competence always leads to confidence. Because if as a young person they learned how to solve difficult times and difficult trials and difficult tests, they learn how to be confident even in the difficult times. So we have to see the truth about adversity, but also the truth about ourselves and others. Often in times of adversity, we project ourselves onto others when we blame or accuse them. Think about in Scripture, 3 examples. There's a man named Cain who is at the time the only murderer recorded in the entire Scripture. So he's recorded as being the only live murderer. God goes to punish him for being a murderer, and what does Cain say? If anybody knows about this, about you punishing me, everyone's going to murder me. But no one had even thought of murder besides him. Often in times of adversity, what we do is we project who we would be and what we would do onto others around us, and we begin to blame them. Judas accused the lady who poured oil on Jesus' feet of not caring for the poor, and yet it was Judas who was stealing from the poor the entire time. The wicked servant accused the good master of being evil when he hid his talents. He didn't just say, I'm sorry, master, I hid my talents. He said, I know that you do this and you do this and you do this. What was he doing? He was revealing what he would have done had he been in the situation of him. This one is absolutely wild. Recent studies have shown the least generous people in America are the ones who vote for government to regulate the highest taxes in America and vice versa. Why? Because what we do is we say, you know what, tax them or they won't give, because we won't give unless we're forced to. Or we say, you don't have to tax them, we'll just take care of people, because that's what we do. When we go in adversity and we begin to blame others and then find a reason to disappear, we are actually pointing out what we would do if we were in their situation. What you see in others is often a reflection of what you are afraid to see in yourself. What we see in others is often a reflection of what we are afraid to see in ourselves. So it looks like this. Well, I'm quitting this job because I know that my boss is favored against me. In reality, we don't know, but that's what we would do if we were the boss. Well, I'm quitting this because I know that this is happening. But in reality, we only know what we would do if we were in that situation. Now, there's a man who's a lot smarter than me, so I'm going to read a very long quote from him, and I think that this is very brilliant. This is Erwin McManus, and he said, "The greatest way to measure the condition of your soul is not what you say about yourself, but what you say about others. This is because you do not see the world as it is, but as you are. If you're consistently seeing beauty in the world around you, it is because you have cultivated beauty inside of your soul. By contrast, if you cannot help but see the negative in those around you, it is because you hold negativity in your soul and exude it everywhere that you go." Now, that's his words, not mine. So you can be mad at him, not me. I didn't say that. He did. But so often I find that this is true. What we look for in life tells us who we are. So if we look for every opportunity, well, I knew that. I know what they meant. They said hello, but they didn't mean hello. They actually meant this. They complimented my shoes, but I know that meant they didn't like my hair. Oh, you know what they did? They said hi to my spouse, but not to me. I know what they're doing. Oh, you know what they did? They did say hi to me, but they didn't say bye to me. And so I know we are revealing what is true about ourselves that we're afraid to face. So when an invisible person plays the blame game over and over and over, what they will say is, I just see the world as it really is. But none of us see the world as it really is. We only see the world as we are. Again, Cain, Judas, the wicked servant, they all saw the world as they were and then try to project that onto everybody else. Carey Nieuwhof, a pastor in Canada, said, "The only person in the room not growing is the only one in the room blaming everybody else." I'll say it again. The only one in the room not growing is the only one in the room blaming everybody else. What we see, what we hear, and what we say reveals ourselves, our bitterness, and our anger, and what we would do if we were in their shoes. So we need to see the truth about adversity. We need to see the truth about others and ourselves. And thirdly, we need to see him. We need to see him. He sees your adversity, he sees you, and he sees who you can become if you don't allow yourself to become invisible in times of adversity. Psalm chapter 34, verse 17, "When the righteous cry for help, the Lord, Jehovah, Yahweh, hears and delivers them out of their trouble. He is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." Isaiah 30:18, "Therefore the Lord waits to be gracious to you. Therefore he exalts himself to show mercy to you. But for the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all those who wait for him." Isaiah 43, verse 2, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. Through the waters they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you." Luke chapter 12, verse 7, "Even the hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear not, you are of more value than many sparrows." One of my favorite verses is Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, mount up with wings as eagles, and soar. When we are willing to see that he is with us and he is for us, even in adversity, I can promise you God sees the problem. I can promise you that. And he sees you. And he loves you. And he cares for you. And he also sometimes allows the bread of affliction and the water of adversity to come in to mold us into who we can become down the road if we can get through the adversity without blaming everybody else, turning tail, and disappearing and becoming invisible. He sees you. He sees the problem. He sees the adversity. And he sees who you're going to be on the other side of it. Now, I could probably stand up here and list a list of adversities but I don't know all the things that you go through. And you do. The thing right now that you're like unable to focus on the sermon because you're like, well, I got this problem, I got this thing. God sees that. He was there before that, and he'll be there after that. God sees you. God sees your children. God cares for your children more than you ever could. God has you, and he has your kids. And he's a loving, good Father. And he cares for us. He cares for our problems. And he cares for who we can become on the other side of them. But we cannot allow adversity to make us disappear. We cannot allow adversity to make us remove ourselves from others. And I know they're judging me right now. I know they're judging me because I know that. You don't know. They could be going through something completely different and yet just as difficult and hard. Everybody is going through something that we don't understand or know about. God sees you. He sees the adversity. He sees who you're going to be on the other side of that adversity. And he wants to walk with you through the adversity. Worship team, you guys can come up here. Think about three men in the Bible. Their names are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Solid names. Solid names. Ty, good names. Good names for kids. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We have one kid named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they're about to go through incredible adversity. And you would think that because they're standing up for God, that he would just shut the fire off or remove them, or they would just come before Nebuchadnezzar and all of a sudden the king's like, shoot, my bad, you're right, I'm wrong. We don't need. None of that happens. What do? They get thrown into a furnace full of fire. And yet, the enemy who threw them in looks in and says, oh, I thought we only threw three people in. I see 4. When I walk through the waters, God walks with me. When you go through the storm, God goes with you. You have a God who will never become invisible in your life with you. Don't allow yourself to become invisible by trying to not face the adversity that you're facing. It's such a temptation. Let's just have fun. Just ignore it. Let's just go on another trip. The problem will still be there when you get back. Let's just go out to eat. Let's just get a better steak. The problem will be there after the steak is gone. Let's just buy new shoes. I love buying new shoes. You know what I learned about buying new shoes? The problem's still there. It's just bigger because now I went and spent money on new shoes. The problem will be there. But so will God, and so will his grace. I think back, I don't know if we can sing this or not. You guys are a lot better than I am at this stuff, but I think back, anytime I went through adversity, you know the one song? Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound, saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. It is a beautiful, powerful hymn, and it's a great reminder of, boy, I have a God with me in my adversity. I don't need to let myself disappear in times of difficulty. He's with me. He will never disappear. You guys know this song? Can you sing this song? Brandon? Lori can sing this song? Yeah. We're going to sing Amazing Grace, and then they're going to sing the song they're supposed to sing. Cam's not here, so I can do what I want. That's not true. I cannot. Cam's watching, like, writing me a text right now. Stop ruining the service. We're going to sing Amazing Grace because it's a beautiful, powerful reminder of the fact that he's with us. When we're in heaven 10,000 years long after the problem of that one coworker who's just a jerk, after that, in 10,000 years, you won't remember how much of a jerk your coworker was. So don't let yourself become invisible in the meetings now. Instead, lean into him. He's with you, and so is his amazing, beautiful grace. I'm asking y'all to stand to your feet. If you know it, you can sing with us. They'll sing the other song next. We're just going to sing this hymn. We're going to do it without instruments even. Like, we're just going to sing like old school style, like we used to do back in the day. Back in the day when the early church faced the adversity of, hey, if they sang too loud, they got caught by the Romans and killed. And yet they sang hymns, the Bible says, even when facing being thrown into a den of lions, because James said, count it all joy, brothers. Trials brings patience. It brings steadfastness. Steadfastness brings competence. Competence brings joy and confidence. Don't let yourself disappear in the adversity. God will never leave you or forsake you. He is with you, and he is for you. Let's sing. I'll meet you down front if you want to pray.